Welcome to the Aging Well podcast. I'm Jeff Armstrong here with Corbin Bruton. In this and the episodes that follow, we will share candid discussions on aging and hear from the experts. We are here to inform and encourage as we experience, aging. In this episode, my guest is Chris Hendren, a personal trainer, functional aging specialist, and a 61-year-old MPC bikini athlete. We discuss her experiences as a personal trainer, one-time triathlete, and a physique athlete. Chris shares her philosophies on functional aging, training, hormones, and fitness, and discusses her book, Fit Life Forever. So, welcome, Chris. It is nice to have you on the Aging Well podcast. For us to start, why don't we have you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, fabulous. Doesn't everyone love talking about this?
Absolutely.
I am a personal trainer and physique competitor. I'm 61 years old, and I've been an athlete. I consider myself an athlete my whole life. Raised in Colorado by two athletic parents, and might even say competitive. And so athleticism has been a part of my life, my whole life. And when it was time for me I felt like change careers, I actually went to a career counselor and chatted with her about it. And it was a no-brainer for her anyway. For me, I never really thought about it, but she suggested I get into the fitness industry somehow. And that's when I was, I would have been late 40s. And started with yoga because it was easiest. There was Core Power. They were always offering training sessions there. And so I started there and then quickly moved into personal training, got a certification through the American Council on Exercise on personal training, and then just kept going from there. So currently I am still certified as a yoga instructor, as a personal trainer, a group fitness instructor, and then also got specializations in senior fitness and functional training through the Institute of, I'll look it up. The Institute of Functional Aging. Yes, Functional Aging Institute. Okay. So, a lot of education. The industry has gone through lots of changes in the past 10, 15, 20 years. Moved away past the Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jane Fonda movements, and they're now really starting to understand how important. Exercise is really the fountain of youth, and I'm so glad to be a proud part of it.
Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly with that evolution of the career. I started, my first real fitness job was in high school working at Steel City Nautilus in Pittsburgh. And that's what really got me interested in physiology, and never really thought of it as a career until I got to right before my senior year and decided that geology was not for me. But, I've seen evolutions kind of from both sides as we look at kind of the physique, the bodybuilding side. And then, when I got into exercise physiology, it was much more cardiac rehabilitation and corporate fitness. And we seem to be kind of moving more towards this better center in the field. And so what exactly is a functional aging specialist?
That's a good question because it really is kind of a buzzword right now in the industry, in that, I do functional training. Well, what that is using your body as it was designed to be used. So, unlike what we sort of grew up, you and I grew up doing, getting on machines and pushing in basically one plane of movement, you're using your body in multiple planes as it was designed to be used. So a simple explanation would be getting out of a chair. Well, that essentially is a squat. So that's very simple. Then moving on to a pickup to an overhead press. So now you're getting more complex, squatting all the way down, lifting, and pressing overhead. So now we're getting into more than even compound movements, which would be combining two different movements, but three here. The squat, the stand, the press. So anyway, that's what functional movement is. And I love to work with the older population. I would say generally 50 and over, but I do have plenty of clients that are in their 40s because they often don't have the understanding of using their body in multiple planes of motion because they went to the gym and used that equipment. And so sometimes I just don't have that proprioceptive awareness of where my body is in space, how to use it, and how important uh, using it properly is to avoid falls, reflexes, and such. So we've gone way past, like you said, the cardio and the strength of days gone by, and now into using our body functionally, safely, and also, as I get to deal with people who often have had injuries or surgeries or some kind of disease process, and to me that's fun because it adds challenge. Um, Working with a young person who's completely healthy, well, that's great. You can get them to really fun, crazy, powerful things, but I don't want to call it boring, but it's not as challenging intellectually as dealing with someone who has, say, Parkinson's or a neuropathy or general balance issues or injuries, hip, knees, shoulders. I mean, by my stage in life, at least if you're somewhat athletic, and I'm 61, you've had injuries. And so you have to work your way around those injuries. And how do you creatively come up with ways to, you know, uh, train power or strength or increase range of motion when you're dealing with an injury? And possibly then you've got dysfunction and off balance. And so for me, it's fun working with people that are more challenging. So,
Yeah, it seems like we've kind of historically, when we've dealt with the older adults, and I've fast kind of now become into that age range. We've we've dealt with the elderly by putting them on machines where they're safer, and they're doing leg extensions and leg curls on machines, and they're doing leg presses and bench press on a machine, and we avoid any of that instability or any of the more challenging movement patterns because we have feared that risk of falling, that risk of injury. And it seems like, thankfully, we have moved away from that, and we are getting more older adults into more challenging exercise experiences. And so, kind of, what are some of your experiences with training the older population?
well, for instance, I have one client who is on kidney dialysis, and he came to me because he said, "Chris, I just don't have the endurance and the strength." And because he has recently been spending a fair amount seated, like every morning he has to go into dialysis. And so he spends a few hours on dialysis every morning and he can't move. And then it takes a while for his energy level to pick back up. And so, as a consequence of his being tired and sitting a lot, he hasn't been exercising, whereas he used to be a golfer and do hiking and other activities, just general fun, retirement type of activities. And so, with him, as when I started training him, I realized not only is it endurance, but he has also some vestibular issues, that is in his ear when he moves his head. He has something going on where and his eyes focusing. And so what I've learned is that there's some more things going on, some degeneration of things going on, whether it's neurological, his eyes to his brain, or a lack of vision. And we've talked about this, and turning the head, and what is causing his instability. So he's a fun challenge for me because I not only get to help him feel better, but sort of, you know ask him, tell him, say, listen, this isn't working the way you think it should. You're not where you could be. Why don't you talk to, a doctor about, your ears? Are you dizzy? It's that sort of thing. So it's more whole health. And he doesn't even recognize it because he's been living with it for a while, I guess. But anyway, so I just feel like I'm really helping him in many ways, not just his endurance, but helping him. We have some things to work on, and we can get there to where you want to be. You want to be able to walk, down the street with your wife, and when she points out that beautiful flower over there, you want to be able to turn your head and keep walking. He said, "Oh, that's an interesting point." He said, "Because I've always stopped, grabbed her shoulder, and then looked at the flower." And I said, "Well, we can do better than that." And so I just it's fun just being able to possibly help him and get to a better place in life. I have another woman who has Parkinson's, and so getting her to move beyond just the slow movement patterns into big movement patterns, quick movement patterns, and unstable situations where she has to think and then also challenge her brain in ways that she hasn't or has been afraid to do before. So there's a little bit of research involved, which I enjoy to some degree. I'm not huge into research, but I enjoy a little bit of a challenge trying to figure out, well, how can I help this person who has whatever's going on in their life? So those are the sorts of things. And hip issues, knee issues. I mean, those are very common injuries or replacements.
Yeah, it seems like as we age, we tend to compensate so much for the changes that we're experiencing as our bodies are aging, and we compensate for them rather than trying to correct them or to try and train them. And I think for anybody who's listening and who is not exercised and has aged, hearing conversations that we have on this podcast and speaking with people like yourself, it's important that they recognize I can jump into this exercise at any point, and there might be certain things I have to deal with initially, but recognizing those things and working on them are very important to us aging well. And I think you really hit it on the head with talking about Parkinson's and things like that. That having power, having wider movements and more dynamic movements is very important, rather than simply just compensating. I discussed my epigenetics test with True Diagnostic co-founder Hannah Wendt in episode 162. Epigenetic testing measures baseline and changes in your pace of aging, giving you the power to steer your anti-aging or health and wellness journey in the right direction. I learned that I am aging well. Click on the affiliate link in the episode description, use the promo code AGEWELL, and receive a 12% discount on your epigenetics test and monitor your pace of aging.
Yeah, and there's also the fear factor. People stop doing things because they're afraid of something. They're afraid of pain, they're afraid of falling, whatever it may be. And then over time, they lose the ability to do that at all. And so then you have to kind of backtrack and work backwards back to, as far as you can to full function and practice that so that they get over that fear of realizing, oh, I can step over this. We just have to practice it. And I can step up on a step, or I can step over this bush with, one foot, then the other, and I'm not going to fall over. So when you gain that confidence of being able to do something that you didn't think you could do before, then you gain the ability to do things that you want to do, need and want to do, that you haven't been able to. So going on a hike with your grandchildren or throwing the ball. For instance, my Parkinson's lady and I, we have a great time throwing the ball back and forth in different stances. So, she'll start out wide, then maybe bring her feet closer together and go into a split stance, maybe even a tandem stance, and putting her in all different standing positions, throwing a ball from all different directions and levels. and a ball of different weights. Up to 6 pounds is about all we ever work with, so that she gains the confidence to be able to do these sorts of activities that she might do with her grandchildren. And then also try doing it on unstable surfaces, one leg up, one leg down, all sorts of varieties that you might have in real life. And I get that question a lot. Why, I put them one leg up, one leg down, or one leg on a compliant surface, and having them, throw the ball or something, pull something. And they're like, why do I have to do this? I said, well, think about that. Have you ever thrown a baseball to your child, or have you ever played frisbee, or have you ever had to pull, something when you're not quite stable? I mean, let's think about these in real life. What, you know, you, do you want to be able to do these with your kids? And the answer is always yes. I want to be able to do these. They never say no. I think I'll just sit there. I mean, if they did want to just sit there, they wouldn't be coming to me. You know,
Yeah.
and you see plenty of people, all you have to do is go to the grocery store. There's plenty of people who really don't, they just aren't interested in progressing or getting, doing any better. They like being in their chair, and they like that. So fine, that's not my client. Um, but if you're the kind of person that wants to be active and wants to be able to participate in other people's lives that you care about, then you got to practice these fun things. I think they're fun.
Yeah. Now, do you find that these people, as they kind of overcome these fears, that fear eventually starts morphing into a desire for challenge and more challenge, and they want to push themselves even further?
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. And that's a lot of fun too. For instance, today, um, we were working on skipping with my Parkinson's lady. And so I had her hand against the wall for stability. And so that's a contralateral move. That is, the opposite arm is leg goes up. So let me see. It was her right hand on the wall. Her right knee would come up, and her left arm would come up as she practiced bringing those up at the same time. So it was, you could kind of think of it as kind of a single leg lunge, but it's just a little skip. It's just calf work and coordination. And she eventually pulled her hand off the wall and was doing it. And I said, well, let's see if you can get any air under there, under your foot. And she did. And she's getting these little tiny hops. So I would say maybe a half an inch, maybe. And then we switch sides. And of course, one side is better than another because no one's completely symmetrical. And so we got her practicing against the wall, single leg. And now I'm like, you can hop. Well, we might be able to be skipping next week. We might be able to take you down this little in my room and skip, 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 skip. And I've learned that skipping is not an easy thing for adults.
No.
Kids do it so naturally. So this is an example of a movement pattern that so many people lose because they don't use it. Why don't they use it? I don't know. Because I think it's great fun. And it's, you play basketball. Basically, that's a skip in order to get up, throw the basketball. It's a very functional movement, and it's fun. And so I have other clients. These are my clients in their 40s, both husband and wife, non-athletes, and they didn't know how to skip. They did not know how to skip. So I've been working on them. They kind of got it, the contralateral thing. But the thing is, they have elementary school kids at home. And so they've been working on it with their kids because that's a homework assignment. Your homework is to go home and teach your child or show your child how to skip and see if they can skip. And then you guys practice skipping together. And they have come back with stories, and that the kids are challenging them to skip and, jump and have fun. And anyway, so that's I guess a good example of, yeah. I don't even know what we started talking about.
I don't either, but that's okay. I think it's kind of interesting that I think we have in our minds that there are certain age appropriate movement patterns, and we more intentionally forget those as we get older because at some point in life, it's just not appropriate for us to be skipping down the street. Right. And so we don't do those anymore. And eventually those patterns get lost for many of us, our sedentary lifestyles. And so we have to kind of relearn them. And I think it's great that you have your clients, no matter what their age is, skipping and doing stuff like that to kind of keep those patterns alive and reawaken them?
Keep them alive and also um, bring them back to maybe childhood joy. Um, I think as adults, we get serious. We think of all the things we should and shouldn't be doing, and responsibility, and that sort of thing. And then we eventually, oftentimes, forget how to have fun, and instead we do things that are maybe destructive to have fun, like going and getting drunk or whatever. Um, and or you only do adult games like golf. Um, and I think it's part of the functional aging concept is to work on the emotional level as well. And joy is certainly an emotion, and so bringing joy into your movement, that moving now can be fun, is important. So
That's interesting, and it kind of caught me off guard. So I don't have the references in my head or where I've actually heard of it for. And I think I might have gotten it from my friend Carmine Arpea, who is the director of fitness for Peconic Landing on Long Island. He recently retired, but they've done a lot of creative stuff with Parkinson's patients in their senior living facility. But somewhere along the lines, I'd heard about some research where they have been looking at the effect of emotion on Parkinson's symptoms, and how when you can get that individual to kind of experience more of a positive emotion, joy, and those types of things, oftentimes the Parkinson's symptoms subside. And wherever it was that I heard this, I remember as an example, there was a gentleman who they had him riding a bike, and he could ride the bike perfectly, no tremors, no problems whatsoever. But as soon as he got off the bike, he was back to kind of the festation gait and the shuffling and the more tremors. But on that bike, there were no tremors.
hmm.
And that the research is looking at, how is this brain connection that we can actually relax many of those neurological abnormalities by bringing joy into the equation, bringing back some of these more even childhood like emotions. And so completely off guard with that, but it just struck me as, when you talk about getting this joy back into the activities and how they're able to do more, it just kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah, joy is something that, first of all, most of us don't get enough of.
True.
um, but it can be found in so many ways. Like, I just got a puppy because um, my two grown-up sons, who one is 31 and the other's 29, neither one are anywhere near like getting married and having children. And there definitely must be a grandma syndrome going on where, yeah, I want a grandchild. So, but it's not going to happen. So I got a puppy, and boy, if there ever is a packaged bundle of joy, it's a puppy.
Yeah.
Anyway, if we could tap into that more. Yeah.
What kind of
But
puppy did you
anyway,
get?
uh, I got one of those designer dogs. Now, this is what I researched this. Um, I wanted a dog that I could potentially use as therapy for other people. And when I did that, I learned that the golden retriever and the poodle are the two top. There's about 10 of them that they listed, but the top two were the golden retriever and the poodle as breeds that are very well suited to that type of job, therapy, being intuitive and helping other people. And but I wanted a small dog, and I didn't want it to shed. So I got a mini golden doodle. And yeah, she's
Great dog.
adorable. Yeah, her mommy was 22 pounds. Her daddy was 12 pounds or is 12 pounds. And so she's right now about 18 pounds at 5 months old. I'm hoping she'll stay like under 22 pounds, that she's not going to outgrow her mom. But anyway, talk about a bundle of joy, and just absolutely, absolutely fun. And I can't wait till I can train her well enough that she can come up and help me with my clients. I mean, talk about uh, navigation and having to, move around something that's, moving. So if I had my dog up here and I asked I mean, whether my dog was sitting or walking, my clients to move around the dog or bend down and pick up the dog or whatever. I just have ideas that I can incorporate maybe my dog into my training.
Yeah. Well, that's the best of agility training. We tend to focus on agility. We put a bunch of cones down and say, move through this pattern. Well, the pattern's already there. You're not having to make any decisions as
Right.
to correcting yourselves. You got a little dog running around, there's often uncertainty, and you have to be able to make those decisions quickly and accurately in order to not trip over the puppy. So good
Yeah,
luck
I
with
mean,
that.
well, yeah, and among other things, that was just kind of an idea, but we'll see. She's only 5 months old. So
Yeah.
we got a ways to go.
Yeah, they're fun. We got a COVID puppy, so we've had Rowena for about 2 years now. She's a red border collie, and just so much energy in that dog. I mean, just nonstop. In the afternoon, she just wants you to throw the ball constantly and just like, can I have a break, please? But she's also the most cuddly dog. She's just the right size that she'll jump up on you. And she actually literally hugs you. She just kind of gets up around your neck and wraps her paws around you. She likes to try and lick you on the mouth, which I don't like. So I got to break her of that. But she's a
Yeah,
lot
so
different
but
than our gold.
how many times have you heard? I know I've heard multiple times about people with their dog, and their dog did something unexpected and they fell because of their dog. And I've heard of broken wrists, broken legs, ankles, da da da, because of their dog. And so here's a potential for a real life situation. And and people will use excuses not to get a pet, like, oh, I travel a lot, and I get that. But they add so much to our lives, I think. And if you're using a fear of, the dog pulling me over or blah, 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 then I think you need to reevaluate what's going on there. I mean, where's that fear coming from? Is it true? Can we work on your reflexes and your balance and your strength enough so that you don't have a fear of being around dogs or having a dog, or because hey, listen, your kids may have dogs, and they get a puppy for their children's, so they're for their grandchildren, and those are just another example of a real life. You've got to negotiate around things that are moving.
Yeah.
And like you said, quick response. You've got to. I tried doing, speaking of quick response, a math challenge. So I set up different boards with answers to math questions, and the client had to sit in the chair, and I had my flashcards, and I'd flash them, their math question, and they'd have to stand up, touch the correct answer, and sit back down. Well, that didn't last very long because people didn't like math. But anyway, so that's another example of functional, and using your brain and your body at the same time. It's reflexes like that. I mean, if you go to an arcade, you're using your reflexes as well. So
Yeah.
it's very, I don't know, very applicable to everyday life.
There's so many creative things that we can do to help one another as we age to age better. So I like these ideas. So kind of getting away from your training of other people, let's talk a little bit about your own training, because you are a physique athlete. Tell us a little bit about that history and how you got into that, and what do you do to be a physique athlete at 61?
You work hard
Yeah.
and you eat right. Well, I got into it in my late 40s, when I could feel my hormones changing and things were going on, and I wanted to make sure I maintained a nice, lean, sculpted physique because I'd always had one. And when I learned that was 12 years ago or so, that I couldn't compete at that level because I had just started on hormone replacement therapy. And at the time, you weren't allowed to use any sort of hormones or growth, any hormones at all, and compete, at least in the type of events I wanted to compete in. And so I continued with my hormone therapy because I believed in it. I still believe in it. but I said, well, I want another challenge then. I like challenges. So I'll try a triathlon. That's when, triathlons were really sort of getting going. And so I tried that, and I hired a coach in the spring, actually the spring before my 50th birthday. And my goal was to participate in my first, it was just a sprint, the short version of a triathlon. And it was a regional event, so it was fairly large. So I trained with her for 4 months and then went to the event, and I did really well. In fact, I came in first in my age group, 50 to 55, and I was 14th overall, and there were like 220 females. I came out of the water first in my heat, and it was men and women. I lost 2 places when on the bike, and then I regained those 2 places to win in the running. And so it was really cool being on the podium. It took me back to high school, and where I was a competitive athlete there. It was fun. So I was in my 50s, but then my trainer asked me, well, did you have fun? Do you want to do this some more? I said, no way. I do not like endurance training. It's really boring to me. I mean, I was very disciplined because that's, I just am. And I did my swimming and my intervals, and I did my bike riding. I got a new bike. I dove right into it. But I didn't enjoy it enough to make it a sustainable activity. And as we know, you have to be consistent to be successful, and to be consistent, you have to be able to sustain it. And part of the sustaining it is going back to the joy element. And for me, the endurance athlete to me is just enduring it. The word defines itself. It's an endurance activity, and you have to endure it. And really, it is a mental game, I think. And I decided that I would just go back to. Well, that's when I started getting into personal training, yoga, and lifting, and there I found a lot more ability to be creative with my body. And I grew up as a dancer as well, and so using my body and in different planes of motion simultaneously, which complex movement patterns, and is fun. Whereas when you're training an endurance athlete, you're doing repetitive movements, albeit in 3 very different planes, different modalities in a triathlon, but it's very repetitive. So for me, that's boring. Where I got into yoga and strength training and functional training, there's just an infinite amount of creativity that can be used to to develop your body, your health, your everything, your cardio, your strength, your proprioceptive neuromuscular, everything. It's so I found just a lot of fun in that, and also got into CrossFit in my mid 50s. That was just hitting Colorado Springs about that time, and I tried that for about a year, and it didn't work well for me because I push myself really hard by myself. And when I'm there being pushed by a coach, I push myself to risky levels. And so doing some of these AMRAPs for 15 minutes, I did injure myself. And I know that it can be done safely. I'm stuttering here because I feel badly. Don't want to ever dissuade someone from doing something that they enjoy, because CrossFit can totally be safe if done and progressed in a safe manner. But for someone like me, it was too intense, and so I did end up injuring my elbow and having to have surgery on my elbow, and then further injuring my hamstrings as well. So I got away from that and recovered, and just decided I needed to stick with things that I could control more. And so that, the gym and yoga, primarily those things are really what I've decided to stick with. And as far as cardio, you know, I'm like, you don't need to get on cardio equipment to get plenty of cardio exercise, doing strength training. You just need to know how to get your heart rate up and keep it up, and combine supersets or triple sets just to keep your heart rate up. You got one, for instance, cardio, mountain climbers with 2 strength exercises, and your heart rate's going to stay up. So that's how I get my cardio in. So I've just progressed to through that. And then when I heard recently, a friend of mine, this was 4 years ago, I guess, a friend of mine who got into the physique competition, and he said, you'd be great at this. You should try it. You're already there. And so I then, just like I did with my triathlon, I hired a coach who specializes in that. And a lot of it for me is nutrition. And oddly enough, and I don't tell many people this because most women get frustrated when I say my problem is gaining weight. And I'm lean to begin with. I've always been lean, and I'm an ectoderm. That is, I have long limbs and a shorter torso, and I don't tend to put weight on easily. I need a lot of carbs, and then when you start lifting and you're trying to put on bulk, then you also need a lot of protein. And so I was trying to eat more carbs, trying to eat more protein and healthy fats, and putting on the weight is hard. I think I never put on more than 4 pounds. I mean, and I weigh, I would start out weighing maybe 103 or 4, and my goal is to get to 110. And women look at me, and there's absolutely no sympathy there. So it's not something I share with people, but the nutrition is really the challenging part of when you get into, people call it bodybuilding, but most of us in the industry call it physique competition. Bodybuilding is the very, very highest level, where you really are trying to put on huge amounts of mass, and that is at the strictest level. And for women, just personally, I think it's not healthy. The women I see that got into that very high level bodybuilding, I'm not even sure they're women anymore. Anyway, they look like men, and but anyway, I enjoy the community. I enjoy the practice, the lifting, the creativity. I enjoy pushing myself. I enjoy, knowing that I can scale back and recover when I have, I have a rotator cuff that was repaired, I don't know, 6 years ago or something. And so if it bothers me, I know how to scale back, modify things, but that I can always get exercise no matter where I am, what body part might hurt. It's just, anyway, that's what I love about functional training. But then the bodybuilding is just a lot of creative movement to hit certain muscles. So I competed first year 3 years ago, and then last year I qualified for a national competition in Pittsburgh, and this year I went there and competed. And I'll tell you, the women, and this is in the 60 and over, these women are stunning. And they're not muscle bound. They look like they should be on the cover of Sports Illustrated bikini. And not the big, round, voluptuous one. These are women who look athletic, but curvy.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just stunning. And anyway, it's fun to see women that have taken care of themselves to such a degree that you couldn't guess their age.
Now, a lot of women probably listening to this say, well, yeah, you were fit to begin with. A lot of these women have already been fit. This isn't something I can do. What would you say to those women that, maybe they have never worked out before, or, it's been decades since they've worked out and they've never really been that kind of athletic or, that big or that muscular? What would you say to them in terms of, setting those goals, and how would you program their exercise in order to kind of help them to achieve those goals?
Well, yeah, first you got to set realistic goals, and you've got to talk to them as how important is it to you? I mean, because it's going to be a lot of work, and you have to take a multi-prong approach. So, how important is this to you? Are you willing to do hormone replacement? Are you willing to look into that? Are you willing to take a very close look at your nutrition and make some behavior changes to get the type of nutrition that you're gonna need to, change your body composition? Do you have the time to spend in the gym learning the moves to do them safely and consistently? Because no less than 5 days a week. I worked out 6 days a week, an hour and 15 minutes, usually on average. Um, and, that's a fairly high time commitment. I call it a part-time job, because you're talking about, let's say, once you've decided what you're going to do about your hormones, because at beyond the age of 50, uh, you're probably going to need hormone replacement. It's just a fact of life, and you have to decide if that's something you're comfortable doing. So let's assume that you are, and you do. um, and then you have to look at, what am I eating, and am I willing to plan my week, essentially, of food? How am I going to do that? When am I going to get to the grocery store? Well, first of all, figuring the recipes. What do you eat? What won't you eat? And then purchasing the food you need, and making sure you have the right macronutrients. Now, that's what a nutrition coach, and specifically a bodybuilder physique coach, would help you specifically with. That's part of the reason I hired a trainer, not just motivation, but also getting the macronutrients right. And so eating more protein than you ever thought you could possibly eat, um, probably cutting down on your carbohydrates, at least as you get closer to the event, and probably cutting back on your fats. And then, alcohol. That's a, well, can I still drink? And I'm like, well, they are carbs, so we may be in moderation, but you certainly can't. You're not going to recover as well if you drink to excess. This is a sort of a touchy subject, because almost everybody I know, my peer group, wants to have a cocktail or a glass of wine on a regular basis, and so and I'm not excluding myself. So I did drink wine while I was training, because it's a part of my routine, and I included it in my carb macronutrient um, load. So anyway, are you willing to make that time to figure out the foods you like and are willing to eat, to prepare them, to have them handy, and to actually eat them? And for me, it takes time to eat. I mean, you can't just scarf down this food in 5 minutes. It takes me 20 to 30 minutes to eat these meals. So and I was eating 5 meals, two of which were shakes, because I just couldn't get food down fast enough. So 3 meals, an example would be 2 eggs with sauteed veggies in the morning, with a coffee with collagen and cream, and then 2 pieces of whole wheat toast. And then I'd have a protein shake in the morning that would contain tofu, chia seeds, whole fat yogurt, protein powder, coconut milk, and water. And I would just make a double load of that, and I'd have that in the morning and then in the afternoon. And then lunch would be a leftover meal from dinner. And dinner was usually really simple. So, I mean, we had, yes, chicken breast, lean fish, but I did include salmon, or very lean meat like filet mignon, or sometimes I would have some pork. Pork gets really dry. Um, and then a simple steamed vegetable, and then potatoes, whole potatoes or brown rice. These are whole foods. So, and then you spice it up with some seasoning, and maybe some chicken broth, and that kind of thing. It was very, very simple. You just have to get it down. You have to get
Yeah.
it down, and that takes time. So I have not met anyone, or I haven't spoken with anyone who inquires about physique training for physique that actually goes forward with it. Um, Lots of women think it's cool, and they'll start doing it, but then they fail, and they'll try and they fail, and they try and they fail, and then they give up. So it's a very disciplined, sport.
I think we still have a lot of women who approach exercises. I don't want to get big, bulky muscles. And I had a student a number of years ago in a class ask me a question I've heard so many times before, and I've always gone into all the physiology behind it and everything else. But she said, how do you respond to a client who says they don't want to lift weights because they don't want to build big, bulky muscles? And I said, I was in a kind of particularly ornery mood that day. And I said, just tell her she's not willing to put the work in. And I was kind of joking with it. But then as I said, it's like, it's really kind of the right answer, because it takes a lot of work to build muscle. And you're talking about just kind of that physique competition, amount of work you had to put into just kind of getting that more slender, athletic, um, symmetric build. Bodybuilders trying to put on even more mass have to do even more work and eat even more food. So it's like, if you want don't want big, bulky muscles, unless you've picked your parents poorly, you're not going to have that problem. And if you picked your parents to where putting on muscle is so easy, first of all, I hate you. Second of all, you don't have to do as much work. That's great. You don't have to do the things you don't want to do. But if you want to put on muscle, it takes a lot of work. And
Well,
as we age, it gets even a little bit harder.
yeah, well, and it is true. There are different body types. Picking your parents. I have a friend who, she is. I guess she's a mesomorph, which means she's kind of in between the short, round, really muscular body and the tall, long-limbed body. They're kind of just right in the middle. And man, she's perfect candidate for a physique competition in that it's funny, a lot of these physique competitors, they're shorter. They'll often have a longer frame, body, torso, at least the women, and shorter legs. And I'm like, her name's Allison. I said, Allison, you're perfect. You don't have to try as hard to get your legs to look full and muscular and strong. You don't have as much length in them. You don't have to. I mean, I have more muscle on my. If I were to shorten my femur to her length and keep the same muscle mass, I would have these beautiful full quads and thighs and hamstrings. If I were to shorten my femur by 2 inches or whatever it would be. So
Right.
but she doesn't like it. She says, I bulk up too quickly. I'm like, you're not bulky. Look at you have this beautiful figure. In fact, she came to my birthday party last year, and she was wearing this cute little fitted yellow dress, and her skin was well tanned in the summer. She just looked stunning. And I had men coming up to me asking who she was. Who's that lady? Because she was just beautiful, but she didn't see herself that way. She saw herself as having too big of shoulders, too big of biceps. Her thighs are too big. Her rump is too big. I'm like, girl, that's not what the guys say. The guys aren't saying
Yeah.
that. So your self-perception, that's another thing. How do you see yourself? A lot of women look at themselves, and I think, certainly to some degree men, they look at themselves and they're just way too critical. And instead of being grateful for what you can do and what you have, uh, they're too critical. And she's certainly one that falls into that category where she's always feeling, too big, and she's not. And anyway, it's funny out there, because then you'll also see everywhere in the community, not just the grocery store and the gym, but you'll see some very, very thin, slight women, skinny. I mean, bones. You can see their hip bones. You can see their scapula. Um, and they have a tiny waist, yes, and they might even have a nice rump, which so many people are looking to have right now. But they're skinny. And I look at them and I think I'm kind of I think worried thoughts. I'm like, goodness, she has a little bit of a self image, I think, um, she doesn't look strong necessarily. She almost looks frail. And anyway, there's some women who like almost go back to the 60s syndrome where you had Twiggy and everyone was so
Yeah.
thin and that was the ideal body. And then now we've sort of taken the opposite approach and there's so many people body beautiful at any size. Well, I don't agree with that. I don't think that an overweight body is attractive. And I don't think promoting this body beautiful at any size is a healthy movement. I don't. I think there's moderation where, the 60s was too thin, and many people, if not most people, are overweight. Now, okay, if you can find something in the middle, moderation, I think everybody would be happier and healthier, but somehow we just don't seem to do that. We seem to go from one to extreme to another. And, in the bodybuilding world too. I mean, gosh, women getting overly bulky, overly muscular, and men too.
Yeah, the men
And
have
then and
gotten
then and then they're disproportionate. I mean, these guys, they go to the gym and some of them, their upper bodies, their mass is so big that they can't even lower their arms all the way to the side, and they can't walk a straight line. They have to walk like a wide line because their legs are so full that they don't come together, so they waddle. And these are
yeah.
guys that are lean. They're just hypermuscular. Anyway,
We need
okay,
to go
go
back
ahead.
to the classic Arnold days when it comes to the men's bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And even with
What do
with the women, I mean, you look at some of the more classic um, early female bodybuilders like a Rachel McClish. She
mhm.
would probably really fit more within the physique category today, um, when she was considered relatively large back then. Even Bev Francis, who was notorious for heavier steroid use and was one of the really bigger, more masculinized female bodybuilders of the 70s and 80s. She is small by today's standards, and I do think there's a certain level of body dysmorphia and extreme acceptance, on both ends that we need to come to grips with. And we have to understand that everybody, every body has a healthy body type for that individual, and not everybody's going to be six pack abs and lean, and not everybody's going to be muscular. But, we all have our over fat, we all have our under fat. And I think we're really fast becoming, I'm going to get on a soapbox here in terms of we're fast becoming a society of the extremes where we have a lot of people who are extremely under muscled and they may be under fat or over fat in that category. They can have a very low BMI, but they can be what I call skinny fat. And people are like, well, I'm, the same size I was in high school. It's like, yeah, but you've lost probably 40% of your muscle mass. You still look slender, and I did a body composition on a woman once that I thought, wow, she's pretty lean. She was an older woman. And I grabbed the tricep and I'm like, it was really thick. And I'm like, oh, I must be grabbing muscle. And no, that's fat. She looked healthy and slender, but her body fat, she was probably in the overfat category, and you never would have known. And so, yeah, we could get on a whole another podcast and topic of body composition and body dysmorphias and everything else, but probably want to reel that in a little bit.
Yeah, no. Don't get started on that.
um,
Yeah.
but you have a book.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
So tell me a little bit about the book. It's titled, I believe it's Fit Life
Fit Life.
Forever.
Yes, it's called Fit Life Forever. I co-authored it with Dr. Cody Sipe. He's also one of the co-founders of the Functional Aging Institute. And so I get to write a few chapters and he writes a few chapters, and together we create this book. And it's a wonderful explanation of what functional aging is, and it discusses things like the disconnect between the medical community and the I guess the training industry. I mean, and Eastern and Western philosophy, and then also about, the different domains, training of a wider variety of domains in fitness than we're used to thinking about, because we've always thought about, muscle strength. We've thought about cardio. There's that big cardio aerobics thing that happened, and balance is in most trainers' repertoire as well. But the things that are often left out is, mobility, range of motion, how key that is. I have a client who can't tie his shoe because he can't either reach down or cross his leg. So mobility, range of motion, and then we talked about the emotional and cognitive importance of exercise. And we know that getting oxygen to your brain and using your brain in ways that are new and different, stimulating exercise has been proven to be better than Sudoku. I mean, bridge is wonderful and great intellectual game, but it's not the one and only thing that can help keep your brain active. You need to keep your body active as well. We are one unit after all, and you got to work it together. The body helps the brain just as much as the brain the body, and then neuromuscular. So keeping those synapses active, motor control, reflexes, reaction time, coordination, proprioception, all those things that help prevent falls, that help you play with your children, balance, all those things. So those additional 3 domains that aren't typically included in many training programs are included in mine. So like I mentioned, that math game, or reading while you're walking, or throwing a ball in different directions, skipping, things that you might not think about as being part of a training program. Well, they are,
Yeah.
and they should be.
Now, how can an individual access that book? I actually went on your website and I saw that I could buy it and have it sent to me. Or I saw it was free, but you had to pay for shipping. I'm not
Right.
sure if I read that correctly. And I'm like, darn it,
Yes,
because I
correct.
wanted to read it before the interview. And I knew I wouldn't get it in the mail fast enough. Is that the only way to access it, is through your website?
Yes.
Okay. So we will include the link in the episode notes so that anybody that's interested in that can access the book. And I certainly plan to get it and to read it. Looks very interesting. Anything else about yourself you'd like to share? I know we've talked before, about you tend to have a very small clientele in personal training, but you're also trying to branch out into a little bit more Zoom type and I believe that was a conversation with you.
Yeah.
So how can somebody find you, find out about you, and kind of connect with you?
All right. Well, I do have a website, and my website is, let me make sure I get it right. Yeah, fitlifewellness.com. So www.fitlifewellness, all one word.com. And there you'll see the tabs across the top that talks about me and has, referrals and, people talking about what I've done for them. An opportunity to buy the book. You pay $5 for shipping anywhere in the United States, and then the different programs that I offer. One of which is virtual training. So if someone doesn't live in Colorado Springs, they can access me virtually and train with me online. And then I also do program design. So what I do is create a plan, a workout plan, or 3 or 4, however many you need. And then I will normally, if you're working with me in person, I will video you doing the exercise. And then I send you all those short clips of that workout so that you see yourself. And then it also becomes an archive of your progress over time. So that's how I do it. I do these little videos and of people's workouts, and then they can do it on their own. So I can work with you virtually, or I can design a program and then give you video clips, and you do this stuff on your own. So we can do that in combination. Um, so anyway, that's what my doorbell just rang for my next client. So I do have to go here pretty soon. So my website, then my book, which is, you can be found on my website. And you click on that, and then it'll ask you for, of course, your name, address, and I believe email. And then, of course, I'm going to use that. I've got that. And then I'll put you in my contact list and keep you updated on any promotions that I'm having. And then, so the book then tells you all about what I do. And then you can contact me directly. I'll give you my email, which is Chris, that's CHRIS, at chrishendrentraining.com. So that's CHRIS. Hendren is HENDREN training.com. Chris at chrishendrentraining.com. And I'll give you my cell phone number, which is area code 719-659-7467. And if I can't pick up, just leave a message and I'll get right back to you. But that's how you would get in touch with me, and I would love to help anyone who wants to be helped.
Okay, and we will leave links to all that in, the episode notes. Normally, my last question for an interview is, what are you doing to age well? I think we've covered that, but is there anything that you would want to add so that you can kind of wrap this up and then get to your client?
I think I have a recurring theme of joy here. You need to do things that bring happiness in your life. Do any activity, move every day, but make it something you enjoy. So, it doesn't matter to me what you decide you love to do, but as long as you do it and it makes you happy. If you want to play golf, well, please at least try to walk and play golf. Pickleball, tennis. If you like going to the gym, great, go to the gym. I think everybody does need some strength training. So fine, but you have to find a way to make it pleasurable for you, or it won't get done. And we have a saying in my family, if it's not fun, it doesn't get done.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time today. This was a great interview. I really enjoyed talking with you. Obviously, you are aging well. And so I wish you the best as you continue to do that.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right. Well, good luck with your next client.
Thanks. We'll have a good time. Talk to you later.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. I hope you benefited from today's podcast. And until next time, keep aging well. If you have topics you would like to have us discuss on the Aging Well podcast, please click on the links in the episode description to send us a text or record your message or comments. We'd love to hear from you and how we can help you age well. If you benefit from the Aging Well podcast and would like to support the content financially, please click on the Support the Show link or support our affiliates and advertisers.